project has a dedicated director. Our director level individual typically is 10 plus years of franchise experience and a lot of successful franchise experience. And then depending on how fast, to Dave's point earlier, you can back into the number and depending on how at the end of the first year, second year, up to 5 years, depending on how big that franchise company wants to be, that will dictate how we staff or how many people we staff. It'll dictate how much marketing gets spent. It'll really dictate everything. What we bring to the table, or what we come to the table with, is you're telling us you want X number of franchisees, and we guarantee you'll get those X number of franchisees as long as you're willing to spend the money. So it ends up being a two-way street. But underneath the directors will be managers. And I'm going to pick on Kelly a little bit. She's one of our managers at Franchise Dynamics. And the managers will often oversee a couple of different projects, but they're really brought in if they're doing, if we're doing large direct mail or marketing campaigns, and there are follow-up phone calls that need to happen after mailings go out. The managers, even the managers, are a minimum of 5 years worth of franchising experience. W-2 employees. From our point of view, is pretty important. When they're the ones that are representing you, you're spending a bundle of money on marketing, and you want to make sure you've got folks that aren't distracted by whether it's other businesses or other activities. Having a W-2 staff that's focused on your project ends up helping keeping them focused. We're able to keep them focused. How many concepts do they represent per category? With the exception of our food, which Kelly is involved in, which is the exception of our food division, typically there's not more than one. We won't bring in more than one senior living center or in-home senior living as an example. And that's not the case with a lot of these franchise outsourcing companies. They'll bring on just anyone. They have a lot of success in one avenue, and they'll bring on a lot in that one avenue. Liability insurance, it's one of the challenges when you have 1099s coming in there and doing your outsourcing is it becomes very difficult for you as a franchisor, or at least franchisors have told us, very difficult to ensure what they're saying. And again, these are the guys that are representing you. Is that my mic? That's keep going. Is it the phones?
Yeah, maybe your phone.
My phone's over here. Anyway, you want to make sure that these guys aren't saying and doing dumb things, and by really having them having their own liability insurance is just one level of protection for you. So make sure that they've got liability insurance. Commitment to developing your goals. So as I mentioned earlier, and as Dave mentioned, we really work from what's the end result. What are you looking for at the end of 5 years? And we back it in. I will tell you one of the somewhat uncomfortable situations is the very first year when a franchise is just starting, because the first year you've started a franchise, first you've spent all this money developing your documents and your franchise offering, and everything is good to go, and now you start dumping money into franchise advertising to bring franchisees in the door. Typically, that pipeline builds slowly over time, and when you have very little validation, you need, to James's point, you need to have a more entrepreneurial person on that front end, and to find that somewhat diamond in the rough is not going to happen it's not going to happen quickly. So typically that first year, most of the sales that happen in the last 6 months. The first 6 months is just spend, build the pipeline, and then everything happens that last 6 months. And it gets very uncomfortable for most franchisors to watch all this money, and they see the pipeline, but that's just, it looks like white space to them. So anyway, just that was a side note. Second to the last, not taking any portions of the franchisor's royalties. I've never talked to a franchisor that is making all the money that they think they need from the royalties that they collect. I see someone smiling there. For your profits, for an outsourced company to take 1 or 2% off the top, in most franchise companies, that ends up being the profit that gets paid dividends to investors. And I would say, really, even to Dave's point, is even with outsourcing, pay for performance. Have it so the large part of the money that goes out to them is based on whether or not they do or don't get results for you. And the not demanding equity is kind of the same thing. You want someone that's doing it based on results, not just given the golden spoon. So full cycle services, and we have a pretty rigid process as we take a candidate through, and really you do need to have a candidate following your process. And I've heard Dave say this a lot of times, if they don't follow your process, they're probably not going to follow, or not going to be a good franchisee. They need to follow they need to follow your process, and if they don't, it's better to let them go. And that's, again, an outsourced company can often make that a little bit easier, because we'll see it and say, boy, they've got plenty of money, but you don't want to bring them in, and we'll help them make that tough decision to not, if someone's really ready to stroke a check and you've just spent all this money and you've got your first franchisees ready to go, and we're coming in saying, this is not the first franchisee, we need to wait. It can be uncomfortable. So, and I'm going to go through these bullet points. And again, we take a candidate we take our franchisor clients from initial sales planning and marketing planning, and we'll help put their marketing plan together. And I know Kelly's going to be pretty involved in putting marketing plans together here shortly, but putting marketing plans together, and again, with the end in mind. How many do they want to grow, and we work backwards. We take everything from initial lead handling, database input and management, materials, distribution, and James, I would add that I think e-documents are extremely important. One of the things that we've found is that the e-documents are great for the person that does the evaluation. The one who's the deal killer is the spouse that doesn't read the e-document, and for them, it needs to be printed. We've found that a printed document in addition seems to work pretty well. So for all of our clients, we force them to have a printed document as well that we'll mail out, primarily for the spouse, not for the person who's going to be the primary operator. But yeah, the e-documents are extremely important. Preliminary candidate qualifications. Similar, and what's really nice when you work with some of these broker networks, they'll often give you, kind of hand it to you on a silver spoon, all of the qualifications of the candidate, and they've already been slotted into your business model. So that makes it easy. But if you don't have a broker lead that you're working with, if you don't have a broker lead, you've got to gather all the information. You want to make sure that it's a good fit. And again, that's what we do. We'll disclose the FTDs, manage and host discovery days, and this becomes, to my point earlier, we take everything from start to finish, from the time the lead sees an ad, picks up the phone rings directly to us. We take that lead from introduction of the business model to disclosure of the FTDs to bringing him to Discovery Day and actually hosting the Discovery Day. And I hate to put Kelly on the spot, but since she's sitting here, Kelly, would you be able to maybe just talk, because Kelly does this actually daily, is taking people through the prospects. I mean, Kelly, would you maybe talk? Is it all right if I have Kelly talk a little bit?
How loud? I can just talk loud.
Or do we need to give her a microphone? Did I throw a curveball?
No, it's okay.
No, I think it would be good to hear from Kelly, because this is what she does. And she's one of our managers, and she's the one who's on the front lines taking candidates' phone calls. And so, Kelly, maybe talk about.
All right, is this on? The first half of this slide is my day-to-day, really. And you've all said it, but it literally starts with all of the marketing to generate these leads that come in. They come to me. And I'm just an extra team member for my client. Although I sit somewhere else, I get the leads straight to me. Even if it's an email that goes to the founder of the franchisor or the company, I'm CC'd on or blind copied on it. Or if it's sent to them personally, they don't have time to deal with it, so it still comes to me. So I'm the first